So, could you tell me a bit about yourself? Where were you born? Where you went to see? You were born in Virginia, I think.
Yeah, born in Virginia. I was born in Lynchburg, Virginia, and then my parents lived in Bedford, which is like 20 miles away. And basically, I lived in Bedford my whole life. So I would just be in this little 50-mile radius for practically. I still live in the 50-mile radius, so I've never moved away from there. I've just been 20 miles west or 30 miles east. So I've just been in the same little area.
Well, that's nice though. It's you've got a community there, and you know people there. People know you. And is it a nice place to live? Is it beautiful? Is it?
Yeah, it's a nice place to live. It's pretty. I would say compared to like the cities where it's like a lot of people just crowded in and it's dirty and all that stuff. It's nice compared to places like that. It's not really a busy place. Everybody's kind of laid back. Everything closes at like 8 o'clock at night, so everybody's in bed. But yeah, the scenery is really nice, and it's also a cheap place to live compared to the rest of the world. So that's
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
especially when being a
That,
freelancer.
yeah, it's a very different experience to me. I'm living in a big city of 10 million people, but then a lot of graphic designer freelancers, I do live in the countryside because, hey, why do you need to be in a city?
Yeah,
I'm in the most expensive place in the world with millions of other people. I don't even need to be here. I could be there sitting next to you, and I would earn the
yeah,
same amount of money. But
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
so you went to school, you went to college, and tell us a little about that because I think you did some. You've had very little design tutoring or education. I think you've
Yeah.
almost taught yourself 100%, but you may have done a little bit of work at college. So what did you do at college?
Actually, at college, I really didn't do a whole lot. I went to this really small community college, and the first year, I didn't take any computer or design classes at all because I just took the general, whatever they said you could take the general stuff, and then you would move to a 4-year college after you went here for 2 years. So I did that. After the first year, the only class that I liked was history. And I was like, wow, this really isn't teaching me anything. So the second year I took a design class. I actually ended up getting like a D or something in it. So so I was like, I don't like this at all. So I decided to just stop doing it, and I would play with Photoshop at home all the
Yeah,
time.
playing with Photoshop at home, that is something I can definitely agree with you on. And
Yeah.
so you left college and you got some sort of ordinary jobs, didn't you, when you left college?
Yeah, I left college and I was working as a waiter
Ah,
through college. And before then, I worked at Subway, and that's where I actually met my wife at the
oh,
Subway sandwich place. After I worked at Subway, I went to Ruby Tuesdays, which is a little diner type place, and I was a waiter there, and that was a lot of work
yeah.
on your feet, moving around all the time. And when I left college, I was still working at Ruby Tuesdays, and me and my wife at the time were about to have our first kid. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to wait tables anymore. so so I started looking for other jobs and quickly realized that there wasn't pretty much anything worth doing according to as much time I would put into it and money I would get out of it. I worked in like a factory, or not a factory, it was like a warehouse for J. Crew. I would like pack boxes and basically just put clothes in boxes for 8 hours and put it on an assembly line. And I did that for 1 month. And I was like, yeah, I decided then that I was going to teach myself how to do web design.
Well,
And
Yeah,
And
well, your choice between working in a factory and doing web design, that maybe that
yeah,
maybe is pretty a clear choice to most people. But interesting that you were. I know you were young at the time, but you. It's interesting for the people who listen to this podcast that it was only a few years ago you were working in Subway waiting tables, stacking boxes in a warehouse. Jobs that we've all done. Fast forward a few years, you've got one of the most popular design blogs out there. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I want to know what you did after. At that point, you suddenly realised you needed to make a little bit more money, and you
yeah.
wanted to get into web design. And you were doing a lot. I guess you were doing a lot and being creative at home on your computer in your spare time.
I would play with Photoshop a lot at home and just do tutorials online. I actually remember going to sites like Abduzido
Mm.
and similar websites that are still around today.
Yep.
But just do tutorials in Photoshop and I actually didn't know any code at the time in college. I had taken we had built websites in high school, like really just terrible websites, and that little bit of website building I did in high school would keep coming back, and I would say to myself that I really need to do the coding thing. And also MySpace was really popular at the time, so playing around with the code in MySpace actually helped. It helped me put the code with the graphics I was designing in Photoshop, and I would start pimping out my profile.
Yes, that's what we did in those days. Yeah, interesting how everyone comes at it from a different angle. But as yeah, marrying up the Photoshop on one side and the HTML on the other side, it's only maybe the beginnings of it. But you've got to start somewhere,
Yeah,
and that's probably
it,
where I started as well. Although it wasn't MySpace, it was well, it wasn't anything like that. But so, how did you get your first sort of big break in web design?
well, after the warehouse thing, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do something else. So I started selling cell phones. I did that, and I was still teaching myself. I was doing tutorials at home and just learning as much as I possibly could to make anything start floating. And I found this employment advertisement on some obscure website that was actually for an employment thing near my house, and it was for a really small web development agency. So I put in an application and I built this little mock-up of their website. So I said, "Hey, I'm looking for a job in web development." They called me back, and I went in for an interview, and I started working there within 2 weeks of that encounter via email. And from there, I took everything that I had learned and put it with everything that they already knew, and the learning curve then was just accelerate. Like I anything that I had a question about, I would just ask one of the people that worked there. It was a really small place. I learned the ins and outs of Dreamweaver and those different little things that beginners learn when building websites. So
Yeah, there's some obviously is a very useful experience for you, getting
yeah,
but you got in there by mocking up a version of their website, saying, "Look, I can improve things for you," and that's a pretty good idea, a way of getting a job or any sort of work
yeah.
is to
Really,
do that.
I really didn't know a whole lot of HTML going in there, and that's where I learned most of the HTML and the CSS, and then there was a guy there that was really good at programming, and I learned a lot of PHP from him.
Uh,
And there, I could learn JavaScript and everything else because the whole world of programming was like locked to me because I couldn't understand it, and he helped me. A guy named Marion Dorset. I owe props to him. That was the first time I interacted with clients.
Yeah.
First time I did a lot of things was at that place, and we actually had some pretty high profile clients like authors and online marketers and stuff like that. So just being in that environment really helped me to grow and really to take the next step of hey, I need my own website. Hey, I need to do all this other stuff that I'm not doing.
Yeah. You were taking on freelance work while you were there, but how long were you there in total for that job?
That particular agency, I was there for about 2.5 years. I was just learning. I was just did everything I could to soak it all in and do a good job and learned. And it wasn't until about 2 years into it when I actually first made my first website, which was andysowards.com. And I made that, and then it wasn't until probably 6 months after I made that and set up all my social networking stuff and looked into freelancing and saw other people doing it. And I said, hey, maybe I should start doing that.
Yeah, well, this is where the story really starts for me because you created your site, andysowards.com. I created mine, robcummin.com. It's interesting, we both got our first name, last name.com thing going on. And it really started for you there in terms of interacting. You went into social media straight away and saw other people getting freelance work. And how long was it before you started your site and started blogging before you started to get sort of little jobs crop up?
It's hard to say. It's really interesting how time passes and you forget just
Yeah.
things. Forget all kinds of stuff. But I know that I started my website late 2008.
Right.
I started my social profiles probably October of 2008. After that, everything is pretty much a blur. But like honestly, it's a blur. But I know that it didn't start right away. I know it was probably 5 or 6 months of me tweeting and tweeting some more. I tweeted a lot for probably a whole year, getting known by people for tweeting about web development related stuff and helping people out with questions and whatnot. It was probably 6 months before people started messaging me, asking me if I knew anybody that could build a website for them. And of course, I would say, yeah, I can build a website for you. And it just took off from there. Pretty much, when I started freelancing on the side, at least almost all of my work came from Twitter, and it continued that way until when I started full-time freelancing. Most of the work that I had was from people that I had met on Twitter, or people I was already working for that I had already met from Twitter. So it was pretty much all coming from Twitter.
That's so funny because do you know what? I have never got anything a job from Twitter, but I did. I came onto Twitter quite late. It certainly wasn't 2008. I don't know when it was, but I started blogging. I was blogging first, and Twitter didn't really exist when I started. In fact, it was things like Stumble Upon, they were and Dig, but I think you started everything at the same time. You said all your social profiles and your website, and after tweeting and blogging for 6 months, you started to get work. I think that's about average if people do it properly. I think maybe people try it for a few weeks and nothing happens and they kind of give up. But you stuck at it.
Yeah, you definitely. If anything that I've learned over the past couple of years, it's that you have to stick to whatever it is that you are doing. If you don't do it for a little while and stop, it's ridiculous. Like I saw this picture on Facebook. You know how people share all these little inspirational quotes and different little things. And I saw this one that some blogger had sent, and it was like a graph, and it had like the normal graph traffic of like a blog, and then it was like most people give up right here at this one point, and then it shoots up, and I was like, wow, if I hadn't looked at my own traffic like recently and saw the exact same thing happen, it was like really like steady low. It was steady low for years. It was low for years, and then all of a sudden, earlier this year or late last year, it started peaking up and coming back down, and then peaking up, and then finally it peaked up and stayed up, and it's
Oh.
uh, you just got to keep going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's testament to that. That is really interesting and really important because people just they just don't want to do anything unless they see immediate results. But yeah, that's really interesting. And how long were you working freelance and doing a job? How long did it take you to pluck up the courage to give up your job, or was that your last job, or did you have another one?
Oh, I had one more job after that agency job, and the transition from a job to freelancing, you always read about it and you prepare, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's so scary." It is very terrifying. It's probably one of the scariest things that anybody can experience, but if you do it and it works, it's probably one of the most gratifying experiences. But when I was working at that agency, I left after 2.5 years, and got a job offer at a financial company, a big insurance company that had internal web applications and servers internally inside a giant building and all this stuff, and it was local, and I was going to be a PHP programmer and a server administrator. It wasn't bad, but the job itself was extremely boring. But while I was working there, I got a lot of progress done on the side, and we were having our fourth child towards the end of that, and it just kind of worked out. Like I took medical leave for the child, for going to have the our fourth kid, and the contract was coming to an end, so I just didn't renew it. And just straight on into freelancing, and that's how that went.
Oh, how long ago was that you did that?
That was in the middle of 2010, so it's been about 2 years since then.
2 years since then, and the work's been coming in, and your site has increased in its importance, authority, and popularity since then. And I'm interested in well, two things actually. I'm interested in how you get everything done during the day with four kids. And I'm also interested in the future. But can you tell me about how you get inspiration for blog posts as well? Because you have an awful lot of stuff on your site: web design, inspiration, map design. I'm just looking at some recent blog posts of yours: portrait art. Um, stuff on architecture and typography, but all the posts have a lot of different sort of examples on them, lot of inspiration as well. You have tutorials as well. I don't want to, you can explain more about your blog, but how do you find the time to write all those pieces and do the client work as well? And tell us a little about that.
Um, it takes a long time to get used to the environment that you're in. Like for me, my kids are all pretty young. When I took the leap to go into full time freelancing, they were all at home all the time, practically. Now, it, most of them are in school or some sort of daycare during the day, but they're not there for very long. So I've learned to get things done as quickly as possible when I have the free time and quiet time to do it. And in the past year, it's been doing really well. I've been able to really just dive in. Like when I have free time, I just dive in and start working, and then I don't stop until it's time to go pick up a kid or go to dinner or do something with them. And I work during the day, and more often than not, I will take a nap or something and then get up at night when everybody's asleep and get some good hours of work done then. I usually write my blog posts at night just because that's it. I find, I don't know if most people are like this, but I find nighttime, the quiet of night, the most inspirational and the easiest to be creative, the easiest to just let your ideas run. My client work, I'll do some of it during the day just because that's usually when they're emailing me. So
Yeah.
I'll be working on it and emailing them back. And sometimes I'll do blog posts at night. Another thing that I've learned blogging is that it's really hard to do a blog post all in one sitting all the
Yeah.
time. And you have to just start it, save it,
Yeah.
pick it up another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I
if
find that. Yeah.
if you try to do it all in one sitting like that, it's hard. It's easy to get burnt out on it, and it's easy to be like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, yeah. I tend to write 400, 500 words quite as quickly as I can, and then come back to it, and then I proofread it as well. I change a lot of the spelling, correct the mistakes that I've made, and write
Yeah.
the end and do the meta description and that and another time, and maybe another day to completely finish it as well. I think it is quite good that way actually.
I'm glad you said that you write down the words as quickly as you can. Another thing that I've realized is when you have an idea for a blog post, you have to almost immediately start writing it, or you will eventually never write that blog post thought that like I never used to just sit around thinking, that would make a good blog post because that sounds kind of silly because I never thought I would be a blogger or anything like that. But once you get into it, you really enjoy writing down your thoughts and different things that you're thinking about. But whenever I get a blog post idea, I will typically write it down because any idea I get that I think is worth remembering, I'll write it down because I will forget it. And any idea that I think is really good, I'll try to start on it either immediately or as soon as possible because once that inspiration is gone to do that particular idea, I find it really, really hard to do it. I've got ideas that I've written down that I just don't even want to do anymore because I just don't want to do them. But if I would have done it at the time, it probably would have been really good.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. So do think if you get the idea, do it as soon as possible. That's a good idea.
Got that from I've seen somebody write some quote that said inspiration has a shelf life, and I think that is really true.
Okay, okay. So Andy, I'd really like to ask you about your future. How do you see things panning out for you? Do you see? And also, I'd like to, if you're interested, ask you if you're interested in other income streams rather than obviously you sell advertising on your blog, but and you get probably. Maybe most of your income comes from clients. I don't know, but how do you see the future pan out in terms of income and AndySowards.com and your business generally?
Yeah, the future. I'm working towards a more passive income future, as most freelancers typically strive for, since it just seems like the progression cycle of a
Yeah,
freelance career. But I enjoy client work. It gets really tedious at times because it is a lot of work, but most of my income comes from client work. I do get income from ads and whatnot, affiliate programs. Don't make a whole lot from affiliate programs compared to clients and ads, but in the future, I am writing an ebook that I'm probably going to be selling in the near future. I don't know when I'm going to finish it. It just takes a long time to write a good book, but other than that, I have toyed around with the idea of creating WordPress themes and selling those. And I've also thought about creating other types of just design or art and sell that stuff. But I haven't finished anything. Hopefully, we'll finish it soon, though. I have started a new website called infinitegeek.com. That's it's gonna be similar to my site andysowards.com, but it's going to be more geeky and geek centric, and it's going to have a lot of technology and science and stuff because I've just gotten extremely interested with that and the universe and stars and galaxies and all that stuff.
Oh
So
wow.
I want to talk about stuff like that over there and how to build robots and all kinds of crazy stuff. But other than that, I'm still doing client work, still doing that type of stuff. Another thing over the years, I had got a lot of job offers. I actually went out to California to interview with Yahoo at one time for a web developer position over there. But after that, I kind of decided that I don't think I'm ever going to be able to work for somebody again.
I don't think you're going to.
After being a freelancer for so long and doing your own thing, it's really hard to ever think about going back to a job.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, Andy.
Yeah.
Not for me, certainly. I think it's been too long, and you know, you just get used to it. And I think also with your business at the moment, I think actually I can understand you finding the client work. You enjoy it on one hand, but you find it tedious on another. I totally agree with you there. I mean, I love my clients, but sometimes they'll come back and just give you the same job as they've given you before. You've just got to do it because you know the job. You can help them better than anyone else can. But you're kind of just doing corrections to something that you've already done before, and it's easy money. You've just got to do it, but it does get tedious after you've been, and it'll only get worse after a few years. So I think passive income is definitely the way to go. But I think you will, with your site, the way it's positioned at the moment is it certainly will reach to be one of the the best the best known design blogs. So I'm sure your passive income will come on in the future. If I were to interview in 2 years' time, what will we be talking about? It'd be very interesting.
Where are they now?
Yeah, well, Andy, look, I think I've taken up enough of your Saturday morning. I don't think your kids are in school on Saturday. I don't think any of them are out. They're probably wanting to spend time with Daddy.
Yeah, they're out with the grandparents this morning.
All right. In that case, I'm holding you back from some blogging and some client work.
Yeah, the never-ending to-do list that just keeps growing and growing.
Yep, I've got one of them myself. Andy, man, thanks so much for spending some time with me this morning.
No problem. Thanks for